In this video, I'm going to be talking about three types of angles: complements, supplements, and vertical angles. Let's start with complementary angles. Complementary angles, or complements, are two angles that add up to 90 degrees. So a pair of angles that add up to 90. They could be adjacent, meaning that they combine to form a right angle, or they could be non-adjacent, and they're not close to each other. But either of them add up to 90 degrees, so they're considered complementary angles. Supplementary angles are also a pair of angles or two angles, but this time they add up to 180 degrees. And again, we can have two types. We could have an adjacent pair or a non-adjacent pair. Adjacent supplements are also known as a linear pair because they join together to create a line or a straight angle, which measures 180 degrees. We could also have non-adjacent supplementary angles, separate, but they still add up to 180. So a linear pair has to be adjacent and add up to 180 degrees, but a non-adjacent is not a linear pair, even though they still add up to 180 degrees. So supplementary angles just means that they add up to 180 degrees, whether they're a linear pair or non-adjacent. Let's talk about congruent angles for a minute. Congruent angles are angles that have equal angle measures. So if I know that angle 1 is congruent to angle 2, then I automatically know that the measurement of angle 1 is equal to the measurement of angle 2. And I could describe that backwards, saying, if I know that the measurement of angle 1 is equal to the measurement of angle 2, then I must know that the angles are congruent. So the converse is true for that statement, meaning I can say it forwards or backwards, and it's true both ways. If I draw two intersecting lines, then I get four resulting angles. Two of those angles are going to be congruent, and the other two angles are going to be congruent, meaning that I have two pairs of congruent angles. Anytime two lines intersect, this relationship happens. Arcs are how we symbolize angle congruency when we're drawing pictures. Some people draw congruent angles with the same number of arcs. So A and C are congruent, so I'm going to give them both one arc. Angles B and D are not congruent to angle A and C, so they have a different number of arcs. Angle B and D are congruent to each other, so they have the same number of arcs. I'm going to give them 2. If I had a third pair of angles, I would give them 3 arcs, and so on. Some people find that a little busy, and so what they'll do, instead of drawing more arcs, is they'll put a hash mark or a little dash through the arc, and then they'll just increase the number of dashes. And that's a little bit easier to do. Anytime two lines come together or intersect, they're going to create those two pairs of congruent angles. Those two pairs of congruent angles are called vertical angles. And it may help to visualize this V being reflected. That may help you remember that they're vertical angles. The name starts with a V. So vertical angles are reflections of each other. That's why they're congruent. They're also known as opposite angles or across from each other. So that's another way to describe them. Their relationship is that they're always congruent. They're always equal measurements if we're talking about vertical angles. There are always two pairs of vertical angles, and there are always 4 linear pairs anytime two lines come together or intersect. And so A and B are a linear pair, B and C are a linear pair, C and D are a linear pair, and D and A are a linear pair. So we got 4 pairs of supplements. And we also have 2 pairs of vertical angles, and that happens anytime two lines cross each other. And so you can describe it using that picture. Angles A and C are vertical. Angles B and D are also vertical. They're equal angle measures. They're congruent. And then our 4 resulting pairs that have a supplementary relationship. These are each a linear pair. So there's 3 types of angles. Complements add up to 90, supplements add up to 180, and vertical angles are always equal or congruent.